Hello and welcome to the Crypto Club and Digital Assets weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 10th of September 2023, and as is always the case with these sessions, we never quite know what we're going to be talking about. Really depends upon the audience and who turns up. Some weeks we talk about blockchain, crypto, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGEs, lots of three-letter acronyms. Occasionally we get to throw the metaverse in, or digital twins, or any news items that are happening as well. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and everyone is welcome to join. So if you're a novice and you'd like to understand more about what these letters mean and how to get involved and interested in crypto, then come along to a future session. There's details in the link below. If you're running a project or you're on a team and you'd like to share more details about what you're doing, come along as well. We have our Gone in 180 Seconds sessions. And this is an opportunity for you to spend 3 minutes talking. So no slides, no graphics, where you get to talk about your project and what you're doing. We do record these sessions as well. We put them on YouTube. So that can be a really useful way of further promoting your project. As long as it's not shilling, scamming or whatever, and is a legitimate project, everyone is welcome to spend 3 minutes talking about what they're doing. Hopefully you enjoy this session, so do click on the like, the subscribe, click on the notify button so you know when there are future videos released. But more importantly, come along and join us at a future session. As I say, every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time. So with that, let's see who's going to come and join us today.
Hey Gary, can you hear me okay?
I certainly can, yes.
Good stuff, good stuff.
How are you today, then?
Yeah, very good, very good. I just watched one of the episodes on YouTube, so thought I'd jump on and say hello.
Excellent, that's great. Well, the more the merrier. We've just got a couple of others joining us at the moment, so we've got G on as well. So G, I'm guessing that's Gabriela.
Hello.
Hey, hola, ¿cómo está?
Muy bien, gracias.
Muy bien. How are you today, Gabriela?
I'm fine, thank you. And you? How are you today?
I am fine, thank you. So we just got a couple more joining in. So we've got so Coder Hard, tell me a bit more. What brings you along today, apart from you listening or watching one of the videos? Do you have a particular interest in the crypto space or anything?
Yeah, sure. I've been investing for 3 years, 4 years. My background is I'm an investor slash coder slash entrepreneur. So crypto kind of like ticks all my boxes.
Okay.
And yeah, it's just good to chat with people who are in the space. And I think level-headed is probably one of the key words in my vocabulary. So keeping it sensible, so to speak, is very important. So, and yeah, I liked how you run the last session.
Well, as I say, I'm very pragmatic and realistic. I'm not into the overhyping of things and the craziness and the to the moon and all this kind of stuff. And also because I've got a fairly long IT background, so I've been through the hoops a few times with various other emerging technologies and seen how they've worked. And because I've been in the blockchain and crypto space since probably 2014, 2015, so I guess closing in on about 10 years, it means I've seen a lot of things happening in this space as well. And exactly as you say, there's a lot of hype and exaggeration, and it's nice just to be a bit more pragmatic and realistic at times.
That's a good word, pragmatic. Like that.
Yeah. But not to deny that there are opportunities as well. But with opportunities come risks, and so one of the reasons I set this group up originally was to make sure that people are a little more educated about how this stuff works, and as a result, some of the risks that exposes them to, whether that's through malicious activity by others or making mistakes. So as you may have discovered yourself, it's very easy to type something slightly wrong somewhere and boom, your crypto's disappeared and can't be recovered because you can't just go down to your local branch of Bitcoin or us on the high street.
Yeah, exactly. Really important people to understand how, if they're in this space, what does it mean to be in the space? I think that's very important. It's all well and good getting into crypto. I got into crypto because I wanted to make money. end of the day. I think a lot of people do. And then went down a few rabbit holes. Sounds like you've been down a few as well. And then, you realize that it can be a life-changing technology for all of us. Whether we get there or not is a different question. But I think part of that conversation has to be, what does it mean to be responsible in the crypto space, and how do you conduct yourself in this world if you want to get into it? And I think that's sorely missed in terms of education. It's all well and good buying crypto, but then okay, now you have a huge responsibility once you've got it to take care of it. Really, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. It is all about personal responsibility, because when it goes wrong, it's only yourself who can typically sort it out. That's why I set this group up originally, because when I first got into this space, I realized there was a risk I might do things wrong. And I realized that probably meant that there were other people as well, like me, at similar level of lack of knowledge. And so I set the group up with the idea of sharing knowledge and the ability to hold hands when you're doing some things and ask other people for their opinions of how they do things. And the thing I love about the whole blockchain, crypto space, whatever you want to call it, is that it's filled with people who like to help, which is fantastic. Sadly, it's also got quite a few people who like to appear to help, but don't necessarily know what they're talking about, so are a bit of a risk. But overall, I like the overall community thing, that people like to help each other, which is great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're UK based then?
I am at the moment. Yeah, I've been gallivanting around the world a little bit, but no, it's now currently in the UK. I like it here, actually. I like the rain, so it's nice. I can't get too much of that sun. Yeah.
Well, for those who aren't in the UK, because I know Gabrielle's in Spain. In the UK this week, it has been in low 30s. So we've had our summer this week. I think it's staying for a couple more days, and then that's it until next year. So,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Good stuff. Okay, I don't know, Desis, did you manage to sort your microphone out?
Yeah, I think I'm all right. I don't know why a few technical issues around here, but yeah, no, definitely agreed, Gary. It's been a bit of an Indian summer, as they call it, quite hot these days. So it's been nice. Yeah, no, all good on my end. How are things with you?
It's good. So tell us a bit more about yourself, what your background and what your interest is.
Yeah, so I actually come from a finance background initially, and sort of studied my master's here in London in fintech with business analytics, and sort of got into the crypto space. In that case, I was working for a small startup called VF Space, which is a decentralized exchange for crypto that was mainly targeting the Chinese market. And 2021 April. And now we're like sort of pivoting into this sort of carbon credits program, the blockchain. So that's mainly what I've been focused on, especially considering how terrible things were in 2022 with Luna and FTX. We faced quite a few issues with liquidity. But yeah, no, just been just a very ardent lover of the whole crypto space, and yeah, here we are.
Excellent. And it's interesting as well, you're mentioning things like the carbon type stuff. There's a number of projects that are working around the whole carbon credits tracking, tracing, and all that kind of thing. And it's a natural candidate for a blockchain-based solution with the traceability and transparency.
No, absolutely. I mean, I guess like the legacy infrastructure that's been behind all these digital certificates that have been offered by the mandatory markets to begin with, like the emissions trading scheme in in EU or UK, they face a lot of double counting issues, just legacy system issues that you face, and blockchain just fits right in. And I think it's a very exciting avenue to take on. And again, we're not tree huggers, so to speak, but it's always nice to help the environment altogether. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certainly lots of opportunities now. I've just been joined by Elena as well. Hey, Elena.
Hi, everyone.
So Elena is our Ireland correspondent, dialing in with always the great one to ask the brilliant questions and that kind of thing. So for those who've not been on before and maybe haven't seen any of these recordings, we are pretty open in the kind of structure of these sessions. It's all about talking about what interests yourselves. So if you've come along with any questions, please just dive in or raise your hand, ask away. That's usually quite useful, particularly for people who are novices, who want to ask the more basic questions, and to be honest, the more basic the better. Or if you want to talk a little bit more about what you're working on, as long as it's not shilling or scamming, then feel free to share. And I don't know if anyone's got anything they'd like to share at the moment. This is where it all goes quiet for a few minutes. Everyone goes, no, I'm just here to listen and learn.
A bit of that, but one of the things that I guess it's more of a question really for the group is I'm looking for projects where crypto is being used not as the primary driver behind the project. It's almost like, oh, we got this project, and by the way, we're using crypto to enable us to do this certain piece of functionality. For example, there's a project where they're using crypto to create, they basically find an investment, they divide that investment into NFTs, they say, and then they do, you can buy a portion of that asset by buying the NFT, and dividends are released through a smart contract, so you're getting paid. So the project isn't really about crypto, it's about this asset, but they're using NFTs and crypto in order to, I guess, in place of shares, right? You'd usually have a share of that asset, but now you've got a NFT in that asset. So I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has found projects that do things like that.
I mean,
sorry,
go for it. No, go ahead.
No, in fact, Coder had, I think you're just speaking right down my alleyway in terms of like the multifaceted utility of crypto. I guess when it comes to the discussion of like carbon credits, for example, that's currently where all the hype is about. I guess that's just a means to an end more so than trying to promote sort of, value growth through the crypto appreciation, so to speak. It's essentially you're providing a service, but for the sake of more financial inclusion and outreach, you would use digitalized token, for example. So I guess that's one way to look at it, I'm sure.
I mean, you're saying you're selling, well, actually, maybe if you could just explain again what you're doing. I didn't quite. It's still proof of concept. We're not selling anything. This is a new project at heart that I'm very sort of passionate about. It's essentially about carbon credits. I don't know how much awareness there is. This is a whole sort of rabbit hole we need to dive into. But essentially, what's been not effective with the current market credits is that there's not a lot of transparency. Lots of barriers to entry for like SMEs and your retail investor to maybe hold carbon credit as a speculative asset to just sort of diversify your portfolio. Or actually, if you do really care about accounting and offsetting and compensating for your carbon offset and your carbon footprint rather. So how crypto, I believe, could come into effect, or a token rather, is that you essentially wrap this particular carbon credit, which has to be again accredited, verified by independent auditors and the United Nations, for example, and then pretty much even me will be able to actually hold that an asset, as opposed to approaching the mandatory markets. It's not something we could potentially do. It's essentially an avenue for big business. So in that sense, crypto.
Nope. Is it me or is he gone?
I think he's gone.
Oh, sorry.
You went on to mute.
Oh, no, sorry.
Sorry, we got as far as you said something about crypto, then it went silent for a few seconds.
Oh, right. No, I said crypto essentially like wrapping a carbon credit around a digital token gives that versatility and accessibility to a token for a far wider audience.
Are you saying that I could, as a small business, if I wanted to offset my carbon footprint, I could buy a token which is basically representing, so the sheer fact that I hold those tokens means that I've offset some of my carbon footprint.
Exactly, precisely. I mean, it essentially acts like just a very verified certification of, here, look, if the government or the authorities are to come to you and be like, have you been offsetting your carbon footprint? The voluntary market is anyway huge, but potentially verified carbon credits that's on the voluntary market, and you hold these particular tokens with you, there you go. You've offset your footprint for the year, essentially. Yeah.
Interesting. And would that be traded? Those would be basically, I guess, done as NFTs?
These will be just tokens, actually, just fungible tokens with a limited supply that will be offered on the market. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Which is my understanding. That's also what an NFT is, right? It's a token with a limited supply. Yeah?
Absolutely, and there are multiple projects that are currently out there with NFTs being sold as a portion or a hectare of land that they're like watching over as a tree plantation project, for example, and you potentially buy that tree and you hold that virtual token to.
That's nice.
Yeah, probably an obvious one to look at is MyCarbon.
Mm-hmm.
So mycarbon.com is their website, which does carbon offsetting and investment using crypto on that. And there's another one. The name of the project escapes me. I'll dig it out shortly, which does some similar things. But there's any number of them. And in fact, just going back, in fact, the way you would describe Coda about using crypto but not for the purpose of crypto, and as you mentioned NFTs and that, it actually goes back to a more fundamental level. That you think about the technology that sits underneath crypto, which is blockchain and distributed ledger technology. I often talk about the 5 mega cases of blockchain, of which crypto is just one of them. Crypto is actually a feature of blockchain. It's not a programmatic thing. It's almost a side effect because you use crypto to provide the financial inducements to secure the network. And some people don't kind of realize that ultimately, if you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum and the others in that, the actual reason that the crypto came into existence in the first place is as a financial incentive for people to mine the crypto. And through mining it, that's how you secure the network. So as I say, there's actually 5 mega cases I talk about in blockchain. One of which is cryptocurrency in its purest state, as people use it to buy and sell and trade in that. Another is as a ledger of trust, and this is where the ability to do traceability of goods and services, check the provenance of that kind of thing. And some companies are doing that linked in with a cryptocurrency. So I did one proof concept a while ago where we were doing know your customer checking, and we were actually recording the details using the Bitcoin blockchain, but not using Bitcoin. So we're just using. People may not realize that within a Bitcoin transaction, there's a little bit of error. It's about 20 characters in size, which is kind of spur, and you can actually use that to record whatever you want in it. And so we use that to track things like know your customer checking there. The other areas as well, so there's crypto and there's ledger of trust. There's digital identity is another big one. So if you look at what's happened in Estonia and Georgia as a couple of examples, where they use blockchains for digital identity of both their citizens, their property, their health records, that kind of thing. Then you've got smart contracts, programmability. There are various things you can do with that. I think someone mentioned smart contracts before. And then you've got tokenization. And that fits absolutely with what you were talking about before, about using NFTs for whether it's fractional ownership of digital assets or physical assets. So there's lots and lots of stuff going on in that. And people kind of they tend to know of NFTs because they've heard of like digital art or digital music, and Nike getting into the space and collectibles and all this kind of thing. But actually, there's a lot of stuff going on around digital twins, real estate, precious goods being traded using an NFT to represent ownership and all that kind of thing. There's actually a lot of stuff going on in that space.
I think I totally agree. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, mate. It's fine. No problem.
Oh, no, yeah, no, I think there's a lot of stigma with regarding all these, bingo players in the crypto market, and people don't necessarily understand the true value of blockchain altogether, the underlying architecture, which really reaps all the benefits. So whenever you're trying to sort of, market a certain product, when it comes to even real estates, we tested something with REITs, essentially trying to fractionalize the real estate and sell it as shares so that a lot of retail investors could also jump in on that sort of bargain. You could raise a ton of capital, but people are still showing there's not a lot of investor confidence to begin with these kinds of approaches. And again, I think more often than not, even with like carbon credits, it's not necessarily the crypto angle we're looking at. It's a more ledger of trust, like you said, just the metadata that we can store to just having a lot more transparency and verifiability is, I think, the biggest sort of merit out of the architecture that people need to sort of be made aware. And it's still not out there, considering crypto is essentially now very ancient in our diaspora, at least. Yeah,
crypto is new compared to other technologies. Bitcoin only came about in 2008, 2009. That means it's less than 15 years old. I always find it funny when everyone says, "Oh, crypto and blockchain's been around for ages." You take a look at things like artificial intelligence, and everyone's talking about ChatGPT at the moment and DALL-E and all this kind of stuff. But AI has been around since 1954, so it's over 70 years old, and it's only just beginning to go mainstream now. So I think crypto, we need to give it a bit more time yet. Hey, let's just see. Been joined by Brian as well. Hello, Brian. Saw you join a moment ago. You're going to say hi.
Hi, Gary. Hi, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me.
Hey, no worries. So we've just been talking about various opportunities of crypto projects that don't necessarily use crypto directly. So things like NFTs and that kind of thing. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, I do. I am familiar with those. I do collect on my own, and I think you talked about the use case of art. I think there's a very interesting use case here, but applicable as well, or expandable to so many different part of current business, what we call Web2 businesses. So I think you explained it very well. But the NFT and the smart contracts can genuinely change in my personal opinion, the landscape of many industries at the moment.
I think that I keep describing blockchain and crypto and tokens and everything like that. It's a bit like the gold rush in the Wild West in California, where there's lots and lots of people who are piling in, getting really, really excited. A lot of people won't make any money. A lot of people lose money. But what it's actually building is the infrastructure behind it. So, in California, it was a result of the gold rush that you ended up with the railways, the roads, the houses, the accommodation, the hospitals and everything, which then allowed other firms to build on it. And I think blockchain and crypto is setting the foundations for doing exactly as you say, of providing a lot of opportunities for businesses to transform what they're doing. So, but Brian, tell us a bit more about yourself. Where are you based, and what's your interests?
Indeed, and I think I really appreciate the metaphor of the gold rush, because I think you're right. Many people just get into the hype and try to dig their own gold, but at the end of the day, only a few make it. So it's really interesting. Personally, I am an alumni. At Imperial College, I studied international management. I did a bit of consulting, but decided to focus on my entrepreneurial endeavors. So I am into art and technology at the junction, using blockchain as well on my my student lending platform idea, and NFTs in the art domain. So that's a bit about me, curator and entrepreneur on the side.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us today. The more we can learn about these things, I love these sessions, if nothing else, but because we get people who come along who talk about what they're working on, and there's lots and lots of interesting things happening out there. There's always stuff to be learning. So, Coda at Heart earlier on was asking about some examples of projects where people are doing things. So I don't know, Coda, did that give you a bit more of a background, a few more potential areas of interest?
It does, yeah. Thanks everyone for that. It's really interesting to see where technology is being used. And I think, I've always thought about blockchain, I think in similar ways to you, Gary, it's like, end of the day, it's a piece of technology, whether you choose to use blockchain or you choose to use a database server or you choose to use, it's a means to an end for what you're doing. And it's encouraging to hear that, we're kind of getting away from meme coins and blockchain for the sake of blockchain. I think that's all. I think I hear everyone's waiting for the next bull run, and if we have one, great, but it might not be coming.
The thing to remember as well, and it goes back to my gold rush analogy, that while some people are getting really excited about the idea of striking gold and 10xing or 100xing where they put into tokens or whatever, meanwhile there are companies who are developing the capabilities of the blockchains. They're building that infrastructure layer, and so the prices of the tokens or the prices of the cryptos, to me, is a sideshow. It's what generates a lot of interest. It's what gets people, really excited and that kind of thing. But actually, it's the developments and the underlying technology that make it so amazing. It's just that it tends to get distracted by people saying, "Oh, this has gone up or down," or "It's the end of the world," or "Bitcoin's dead for the 450th time," or whatever. It is really about what technology is going to enable, and it keeps evolving and changing and improving. So I think there's a long way to go. I sometimes use the analogy of with general technology things. If we think about aviation, and it kind of feels a little bit at times in the crypto and blockchain space, and this is where it's funny with someone saying before about how crypto's been around for ages. It kind of feels a little bit like we're on Kitty Hawk Beach in 1903. And for those who know about their aviation history, that's where the Wright brothers did their first flight with a little airplane. It flew, I think it was 80 feet or something like that. And I think in crypto and that, we're not much more beyond those early flights. And already we've got people saying, well, that's never going to fly across the Atlantic, is it? There's no future in it, blah, 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 type thing. So I find it fascinating. I think there's a lot more to come yet.
Yeah, agreed. I also believe that the value of these tokens will hopefully end up being the value, well, except for Bitcoin, where there's, there's nobody, quote unquote, behind Bitcoin. But in terms of the other projects that are starting, it's like, the value of the crypto should end up being, the value of the business or the proposition or the value that that company is bringing to the marketplace. And I feel like those will end up being more correlated than they are today.
You've also got the thing as well, particularly when you're talking about things like NFTs. Someone mentioned REITs before. So for those who don't know what a REIT is, it's a real estate investment trust, and it's a way of investing in real estate. And there are a number of projects that are looking at using tokens to represent investments in real estate. And in fact, there are some companies who are taking it wider than that and are using tokens as a form of digital representation of ownership of other digital assets. So we had Anthony Abel from TPX on a couple of weeks ago. TPX are doing some really interesting stuff at the moment around tokenization of other assets, financial instruments and that kind of thing. And I think this is where there's going to be a major growth with NFTs soon, which is less of the digital art, collectible gaming, all that kind of stuff, although there's still some growth in that area, towards using NFTs as digital representation of ownership in companies, so like shares, ownership and fractional ownership of property, fractional ownership of high value goods and that kind of thing. And I think we're only just at the beginning of that. And that's where I think might be the next big wave in the space. So watch this space, see how it turns out. I don't know, anyone else who's joined the call, feel free to join in if you've got any questions or any comments or anything specifically that you'd like to either talk about or hear about. I don't claim to know everything about all technologies, but I always see how we can help each other in some way. So if anyone's heard of anything or has heard a topic that I think, what's that? See if we can help each other.
Do you mind a philosophical question?
Yes, go for it. Yeah.
Besides the 5 mega cases of blockchain that you just mentioned, cryptocurrency, ledger of trust, digital identity, tokenization, and smart contracts. As the time goes and the technology develops, what do you think might be some more mega cases of blockchain?
I think at the moment, from what I've seen so far, everything falls within one of those 5 categories in how blockchain's being used. They're either being used to record data or to make it programmable in some way. So I think that those 5 cases, I actually came up with that idea of the 5 mega cases, I think in 2018, actually possibly in 2017, and it seems to have worked okay. So I don't know, Brian's got his hand up, so maybe you could add something extra.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you would not add a 6th category being the distributed ledger capability of sharing CPUs, computer interface or computing power, which would allow people to actually embrace more of the technological advancements thanks to the blockchain.
Yeah. So I guess that actually fits in really nicely with tokenization, because what you're doing is you're tokenizing the compute resources. And in fact, there have been projects that have been doing that for a while. So one of the original crypto projects was called Filecoin. And Filecoin was the ability to purchase Filecoins, which then gave you access to compute resources. So I think that's a good one, but I think it fits within those kind of 5 things. But then equally, I'm just being protective about the idea of the 5 because I came up with the idea. So yeah, there may well be 6 in some way. But yeah, Filecoin was actually one of the really early ones, where it was like a utility token in effect, where you were purchasing compute resources, whether that's CPU cycles, disk space, memory, that kind of thing, and they tokenized it. So I think there's probably going to be more of that. There have been a few other projects around that as well. And you look at the likes of this project called World Mobile Token, and they've got a token which I think the code is WMT, and that is all around tokenizing telephony. And they've got some projects, I think Tanzania was one of their launch ones, or Zanzibar, certainly in that kind of region of Africa, of tokenizing mobile telephony, introducing things like rigid airships that transmit telephone signals, that kind of thing. And you were able to use those and pay and that kind of thing using the token. So I think, yeah, it's a good point that's already being developed. And we've got Christopher's just joined us as well. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
How you doing, Gary? How are you? I thought I was just snuck in there. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
It's all right. You're trying to compete with my shirt for brightness, aren't you?
Yes, yes. I thought I'd wear something befitting for the weather.
Excellent. Yeah. How's the project in the Middle East coming along?
Yeah, it's going okay. Also, it's pre-launch for the Desert Pearl, so it's going to take a few weeks to really. But the press release is coming out from the Dubai Land Commission and so forth very shortly, so people will hear about it in general public. On top of that, not in Saudi at the moment. I'm looking to go there, I think, in November, to work on just innovation, business, hackathons, and stuff like that.
So certainly Saudis does seem to be a fascinating area in terms of the investments they're putting into things at the moment.
They are. I mean, to be honest, they have the money. They just don't know where to put all the money yet. So they're just getting all regulation with digital assets together. And there's different initiatives coming out of Saudi. But I don't know. I would like to do something around tokenization, probably with healthcare as well. So that's something I have a keen personal interest in.
Yeah, and I think you and I have chatted before about electronic patient healthcare records and the challenges of putting them onto a database to start with, let alone whether it's on a ledger or a blockchain or anything else. It is a fascinating area. So definitely.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. A lot of that's going to do with privacy and policy and regulation of that particular jurisdiction. So about background noise, my kids are doing their thing.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, okay, good. But yeah, it's something that I would like to explore a bit more over the course of the coming months and years. But there's so much to this ecosystem. There's so many different initiatives. So okay, sorry about that.
No problem. That's right. This is one of the challenges we all have at times. That this time of day for some is when kids go to bed, and that kind of thing. It's just the nature of it. So not a problem. Feel free with everybody. Just dip in, dip out, that kind of thing. It was certainly interesting what we were just chatting about there about other uses of blockchain and things like health records and that kind of thing. And I find it fascinating, having been involved a little bit in looking at health records in the past. They are surrounded by complexity, whether it's regulation or power grabs between doctors who think they own your healthcare record and patients who think they do, and so on. But then you've got another angle to it, which is fascinating, and I know there are some companies doing research on it at the moment, is in the pharmaceutical sector. So things like product traceability and clinical trials as well. And again, this sounds like something which is a natural to go onto a blockchain of capturing clinical trials data and putting that onto a blockchain, which sounds brilliant until you realize that most companies who sponsor clinical trials do not actually want people to have access to clinical trials data unless it proves that the product works really, really well. So it's one of these things that's something that sounds like a great idea. When you actually apply it within a business, the business goes, no, we don't want that. So anyway.
Well, it depends, because genomic data is something that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And they use our data to make money. So why can't we democratize it and have the actual users or the data the use it's based on to have some say, or even to have a reward for that whole genomic data that's gathered, you know?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, that the likes of 23andMe, who did a tracking of people's DNA, where you became a member, you shared your DNA, and they used it to effectively build a DNA family tree for you and everything, which all sounds fantastic and amazing and incredible. And then they were bought by a pharmaceutical company. So people didn't realize that all of a sudden this pharmaceutical company's now got their DNA data, which, if it's done for good reason, could allow for things like bespoke product development. So you could end up with companies manufacturing medicines that are absolutely bespoke and customized for you as an individual. Or on the darker side, it allows them to do things like figure out if you've got any parts of your DNA which are indicators of future healthcare problems. Now, on the good side, that means if they can use that to identify people and do screening, then they can provide healthcare for you sooner. On a bad side, it means that insurance companies would like to know about that, because then they could decline offering you insurance. So it kind of goes both ways. Lots of stuff in this space.
Absolutely.
So maybe Coda will come up with some more ideas there of stuff that can use blockchain, certainly, but not necessarily crypto.
Can I just ask Christopher, are you based in the UAE, Christopher?
No, I'm London based.
You talked about a project with the Dubai Land Department?
Yeah, that's right. So Dubai Land Department have launched a new project of late, and they're going to put a press release out regarding tokenizing the land.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that just Dubai, or is that the whole UAE? Just Dubai, right?
Just Dubai City. So it's just part of the 2040 urbanization project that they roadmap that they had. Yeah. So.
And what's your role there, Christopher? Is it your company that's doing that, or?
No. I'm a technologist. I do, education. I do technical work, but I as part of the project, they have a marketing company called Sapphire Group International, and they promote via that company, and I'm just a promoter, partner of that company, spreading the word, let people have access to the tokenization project, really based in UK, but I talk to people all over the world.
Oh, are you on LinkedIn, Christopher?
I am actually. It's
is that okay to share details, Gary? I don't want to.
Yeah. If people are happy to share the details, not a problem. In fact, part of the reason for creating a network like this is it allows people to build their networks and build their contacts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could put my LinkedIn in the chat. So
that'd be great, Christopher.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to learn more. I was in Dubai for 12 years, 15 years, not anymore, sold my assets there, but those guys are, I would say, way ahead of the curve with most things in the way they think about. And the great thing about not being a democracy is that when the ruler says do something, it happens.
Yes, it has its advantages.
It does,
yeah, absolutely. But they do have a regulatory board called yeah, that's correct. Sorry, yeah. So they have to get authorization for that as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I presented at a conference in Dubai, I think it's about 4 years ago, and as you say, they are definitely ahead of the curve with a lot of these things. And with the whole, was it the 10x project, which is the idea that they want to put the country 10 years ahead of any other country in terms of innovation and creativity in that. And you've got things like DIFC, which is that Dubai International Finance? Yep. Where they were exploring blockchain and crypto opportunities. You've got Dubai Ports, if I remember correctly, or the Freeport, were doing some stuff around crypto and blockchain. I was fascinated because I was presenting about blockchain at this conference, and they were busy telling me about all the projects they were already working on. And that was a few years ago. So they're definitely doing lots of interesting things. They've got a crypto-friendly regulatory environment as well. So they're one of the few regulators who are putting in place precautionary, cautious, sensible crypto regulation. It is probably the way of describing it. That it's quite crypto-friendly, and it's also tax-free, which is quite attractive. And it's interesting that, across the wider Gulf states around the UAE, you've got Abu Dhabi, where the Abu Dhabi financial regulator, again, is very blockchain and crypto friendly. You've got various other projects as well. I think it was Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and two others who were involved in the ABBA project, where ABBA is ABER as opposed to the Swedish band, which was to do with cross-border financial settlements using blockchain and crypto. So the Gulf states definitely one of the regions which are very blockchain and crypto savvy and friendly. So
that's interesting.
I really would like to pick your brains, actually, guys, regarding sort of DeFi regulation around Europe and what's been really happening about. I mean, I just feel like it's just been really difficult with the FCA, at least in terms of dealing with like a virtual asset service provider license to, and now we see the harmonization of tokens coming in with MICA. A regulation that's been passed across, but yeah, it's been hell dealing with the FCA, so to begin with, and I think this is a pain point for all startups here in London and the incubators. And essentially, what's your take on it? Because I do understand, yes, they've been playing a catch-up game. They've been giving too much allowance for sandbox experiments and all this, and now they want to crack down and everything that's been going down. But also, I mean, even if you look at the company house register to the businesses that are passing on, the onus on the people to actually run this business whilst accommodating for all the costs that FCA keeps on putting down on you, even in terms of like firm-wide risk assessments and like, I mean, just to not even get too granular, they just want things to be so wide and open, but it sort of defeats the purpose of DeFi altogether, in my opinion, if we are to like, you know, dive in and find something new and exciting. But I just feel like, you know, they've been really restrictive in that sense, and just with markets conducive to more crypto-friendly behavior. It's a very interesting topic for me, and I just want to know, like, what's your take on it? How are things going to be in the future? Just general sort of a discussion on that.
Let's open it up. I'll offer some insights at the end, but I'd welcome other people's thoughts first.
From my point of view, obviously, they're cracking down on the whole promotion of different types of crypto projects. In October the 8th, I think the FCA have a particular regimen of being authorized or being under umbrella of authorization of what you can promote to the marketplace. I think DeFi is amazing. In what it could do for democratizing finance and financial inclusion. I'm not too often. I have to look more into the FCA regulations and what they're proposing, but the Middle East are very much way ahead when it comes to these type of things. And but obviously, if you look at London Stock Exchange, where I used to work, they made a big announcement. They've reached an inflection point where they are going full steam ahead with creating a business unit with digital assets, and that's going to include DeFi. So they very much want to get still ahead of all the other exchanges and ahead of a lot of the financial institutions out there in creating tokenized and digital assets, whether it's across DeFi or any other type of financial instrument, to enable them to offer that to their clients. You know, so I think it's an evolving thing. You know, I would like to find out how I can get authorized in some way, what that entails. But yeah, I think that FCA they want to be how can I say progressive, but at the same time they can be quite stifling. You know, in some ways with their approach. But that's my take on it anyway.
No, I totally concur with that, Michael. I mean, Christopher, sorry. I've realized like that it's on paper. Oh yes, for sure. They're all about proliferation of SMEs and let's get these guys on board. We're all for you. But then when you deal with them, they go back to the old age bureaucracy that you'd be very sort of surprised. I'm just saying this with just 2.5 years of experience now, consistently dealing with the FCA. So that's my understanding as well. It's just agreed. It's progressing, but at what pace, and how are we to keep up with the rest of the markets like North America, Europe, and that sort of thing sort of comes into mind as well, I guess.
Anyone got any other thoughts? I'll throw in a few things then. So first of all, the FCA. So for those who don't know, the UK Financial Conduct Authority, they are the government's appointed regulator of financial services in the UK, and they supervise the entire landscape around traditional financial instruments that are regulated. The interesting thing about crypto is that crypto in the UK is not a regulated financial instrument. However, the FCA have introduced a whole load of regulations around promoting and selling crypto, even though it's not a regulated thing. So it's kind of bizarre that the FCA introduced the crypto asset register a couple of years ago, which was for any company who sells crypto assets, whether they're crypto tokens, cryptocurrencies, or other assets. If they sell them in some way, so if they're an exchange, for example, then they have to go on the FCA register. So you've got a situation where the FCA has a register that you have to be on in order to sell a product that's not regulated. So it's kind of like unregulated regulation or regulated unregulation. And this is where you have to look back at what the purpose of financial regulator is. And it's typically a financial regulator fulfills two purposes, and lately a third one, which we'll mention as well. So the first prime goal of a financial regulator is financial stability. So they're mandated by the Bank of England, to make sure that the financial system stays true and doesn't collapse. That's the first thing. The second one is around consumer protection. And this is where they kind of play that as the trump card of, we're doing this for your interest and we're doing this for your safety, which in my experience, any company who says we're doing this for your safety, it's not for your safety, it's for their protection in some way. And you could argue that some of the regulations the FCA has put in is to reduce their risk rather than to reduce your risk. But the third one, this is where it gets interesting. The third one for a financial regulator now is around providing a regulatory competitive environment that encourages companies to operate in your country. And this is the thing that in the UK, there was some legislation passed a couple of months ago called Financial Services and Markets Act, which includes in it an explicit requirement for the FCA to provide a regulatory competitive and attractive environment. So this is where you might see the FCA gradually shifting a little bit in its attitudes. But for now, I think someone mentioned Sandbox. So the FCA has been running a Sandbox program for, I think it's about 5 years now, maybe 6 years. I've actually helped a couple of companies go through that Sandbox program. And the idea is to allow companies to push the boundaries of regulation without exposing people to too much risk. So that they've used the Sandbox to try things out, and they've now changed it a little bit, and it's all about exploring the boundaries and pushing things. So that's the FCA perspective in the UK. And then I think, Desert, you mentioned MICA. So for people who don't know, MICA is European regulation, and it's the marketing crypto assets. And the sticking point with MICA tends to tie in with what is known as FATF, or the Financial Action Task Force. And this is where it links in with what's called a travel rule, which is the ability to do KYC checking and anti-money laundering checking to track where crypto has come from and where it has gone to. And this is where it's introduced a whole load of rules. And someone mentioned VASPs. So these are virtual asset service providers. So again, these things like crypto exchanges, where they now have to record for each transaction where the crypto came from and where the crypto went to. And that's beyond just wallet addresses. So they actually have to know, it's come from Elena and it's gone to Gary or it's gone to Chris or whatever, as an individual basis, which is why the centralized exchanges all do a lot of KYC and AML checking now. And that's where you start getting a conflict with DeFi, because some DeFi exchanges, so decentralized finance exchanges, aren't so rigorous on the know your customer checking and identity checking. And that's where you get a conflict, because you've then got unverified crypto being traded on DeFi exchanges and then going on to CeFi or centralized exchanges, which means it's kind of tarnished in a way. So that's where you start getting this complexity type thing. So it's a lot more than just UK regulation or European regulation, because FATF covers the whole world really. And so there's all sorts of overlaps. And this is why I think DeFi, I think someone mentioned about the frustrations of it earlier. It is going to be challenging because there's a lot of vested interests in making sure that you're not doing things like money laundering in there, and they'll use that as an excuse. So that's my experience and some thoughts around that.
No, I mean, I totally concur. I mean, the frustrations necessarily stem from just the aspect of the FATF, like you mentioned, the Financial Actions Task Force, where they essentially, for a startup that's in its pre-seed stage, for example, bring down these load of questions with regards to how we're going to be monitoring AI-driven like fraud and AML risk detection, for example, and the sort of safety policies that you're trying to put in place. Well, any sort of exchange that's coming into play right nowadays have to have their sort of basic AML and KYC protocol. But this goes a step beyond in terms of essentially doing credit checks to looking at politically exposed people. Now, to have that kind of, depth of search, you require to have your company established, have some, funds pouring in, and then you're hindered at gate number one to sort of go ahead with this. And then obviously what happens in that sort of situation is everyone goes offshore, and then they find jurisdictions that essentially suit their sort of purpose, and end up not doing any form of regulatory framework for their company, and then you end up with a bunch of fraudulent enterprises. So it just feels to defeat the whole purpose altogether. But that's just my 2 cents to begin with, I guess.
That's why I say it's interesting that some of the regulations, certainly in the UK, is about kind of mandating that the regulators have to become a little bit more competitive with other regulators. So you get the thing, what's known as regulatory arbitrage, which is where some companies will re-domicile themselves in different countries where they know the regulator is more friendly. And so, governments beginning to realize that this happens. They're saying, well, if the activity is going to happen anyway, would you rather it happen in a regulated environment in our country where we've got some oversight of it, or in another country where our consumers can get totally ripped off? So, yeah, it's certainly an interesting landscape. And also, this comes back, I mentioned the FCA with the crypto asset register. The original purpose of that was because the FCA took supervisory responsibility for anti-money laundering. So again, there's more regulation. There's what's called AMLD6, which is the Sixth Money Laundering Directive, which again has controls. You mentioned sanctions and PEPs before. So PEPs are politically exposed people. This is where there are certain people, if they're like politicians, government leaders, and so on. Financial institutions have to be very careful when they're dealing with them, because there's the risk that they might be being bribed or manipulated or whatever. But that all ties in with the AML regulations. And so the FCA said, well, the best way of us supervising that from a crypto perspective is to have everyone on a register, and you have to fill in a whole load of forms and go through a process. And the FCA, with the best will in the world, is not exactly overstaffed with highly knowledgeable crypto people. So the regulation or the application process tends to be quite slow. And that might be the thing as well. Christopher, you were mentioning before about potentially becoming authorized. I think you used the term. This is where you learn the magic of certain words and the FCA does not authorize in crypto. It simply has a register of companies who are registered. So that allows a regulator to regulate without it being a financial regulated instrument. So they don't actually authorize. So this is one of those things that simply because you're on their register, it means you are permitted to operate, not that they're actually saying that you're good, that type of thing. And it's a classic thing of regulators. They want to put something in place that protects people, but they don't want to be on the hook if it goes wrong.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But how do you get onto that register? That's one of the things. Then.
Oh, you apply. It's on the website.
But how many people do they authorize?
Quite an extenuating process. Quite an extensive process.
Yeah, I think there's last time I checked, there's 48 companies registered on it now. They originally had, it was well over 100 applied.
Correct.
A load of them withdrew. Several of them just re-registered and went to Singapore, because Singapore had a more what was considered regulatory friendly environment. Some went to the likes of the BVI, so British Virgin Islands and that kind of thing. So yeah, it has been frustrating. There are not many companies who are on that register, and it is a slow and arduous journey. Anyway, folks, really sorry that I realised we're just in the last session there, time has just flown by. And I always try and close these sessions off on the hour, so it's just overrunning a little bit. So I'm going to have to close off now, and hope that was useful and interesting to people who joined today. For those not been on before, hope you enjoyed it. For those who are watching this on video, do subscribe, like, do all the YouTube stuff. Or even better, come along to a future session. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.